Live. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to Hollywood Gatekeepers. How are you? What's happening? We are going to dive in today to talk about reader pet peeves. Let's do this. So, we love doing these trainings so that you can learn more about being a reader. If you're a writer, you can see what gets your screenplay past a reader. We absolutely love doing these sessions. And sometimes we love talking about things that annoy us. That's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be talking about reader pet peeves today. Super happy to have you here. I'm making sure that I can see everything here. And yeah, let's dive in. So the reason that we're doing this training about reader pet peeves is for two things. One, if you are a writer, this will help you know what, yay, good vibes. Love it, love it. Thank you, Larissa. So this will help you know as a reader, these are the things that can get annoying. And some of them are just tips in terms of things that will get your screenplay past a reader. So these are the things that we look for as readers. And then these are the most common mistakes that we see. So if you're in our programs and you're studying to be a reader, these are the things that you will see over and over and over and over again. And it's up to you to not make them pet peeves. We put that up there because it's a pretty easy way to describe what we're talking about or things that we see. You can kind of know that pet peeve is going to be something that a reader sees all the time. And so as a reader, though, we are always in a place of trying to stay curious. So I'm going to take some of these pet peeves and sort of turn them on their head so that you as a reader can take those pet peeves and turn them in a way to elevate the script, because that's really what we're here for, is to do that both for writers and for producers. So hello. Love that you're here. Let's dive in. So the first one, and I've named these. These are just me coming up with names. This is not an industry name. Hi there. I see people blogging in saying hello. These are names that I came up with so that they would be easy to identify as opposed to just kind of random. So the first one I call snaking the pages. So snaking the pages refers to you have a screenplay and it looks like it's formatted correctly. So you think that the writer understands formatting, right? But you notice that the margins are either really wide, so the screenplay is longer, or the margins are really narrow, so the screenplay is shorter. And that is a way that some writers try to make it to where their screenplay is still within the 90 to 120 page limit. Well, the thing about that 90 to 120 page limit is it's a minute per page. So every script that's 90 pages is supposed to translate into a movie that's 90 minutes. So when you do that, you're messing with the length of the film. It's very important. And so sometimes if a screenplay is formatted and it's a big mess, we realize, okay, this person just doesn't understand formatting. But if your formatting is pretty spot on, aside from that, then it looks intentional. And the reason why this is a huge no-no is pretty self-explanatory, I think. But one of the reasons this is a huge no-no is because it speaks to integrity, right? If you have major margin, if you know formatting and you're messing with your margins, that speaks to integrity of like you're trying to snake your pages. You're trying to get it by that. No, it's long enough. Really, read slowly, talk slowly. It's like, no, just expand it. Develop it a little bit more. Or if you've got it to where it's like tinier font, one smaller thing that's included in this, where I'm just going to make it, 11.87. It's like when you're trying to do that, for one, as a reader who reads and reads and reads, we spot it a mile away. It's like when even if it's like something's wrong, something's different, and you don't know what it is, it's that typically. There's like the font, you've chosen a smaller font or something. You want to stick to those formatting rules. They're important because we have such a volume of work that readers are taking in and reading that these rules are there. You can break any rule of screenplay writing. That's up to you, as long as you know the rule and that you're breaking it. So, but these particular rules speak to integrity of like understanding that it needs to be a certain way so that, people are putting a lot of money on this. There's a lot riding on it. So when you snake your pages or you do something like that, it speaks to that you're trying to either pull a fast one or it's just not professional. It's really the bottom line. So, and this also refers to proofreading. I should come up with my own proofreading disasters or whatever. But proofreading comes in with snaking your pages because it's kind of a similar thing in terms of like, you're just trying to get things, just get it done and get things past the reader without really thinking about it. So you're just you're snaking it. Is that a thing? I don't know. I think it should be. So it's like, and you have to go like this when you you talk about it. So when you're snaking your pages in terms of not proofing, that means that you're not taking the time to proofread your own screenplay. And if for some reason you have, you're dyslexic or there's some problem that you have, get someone else to do it. Get your mom or your sibling or your spouse or someone to read this screenplay, at least for typos, at the very least. Because if you're expecting us as readers to take our time and read your screenplay and give you notes and tell or move it on to the producer, you're expecting a producer who's got thousands, if not millions of dollars on the line on this project to take a time out to read every detail, and you won't do that yourself, or you won't make sure that it's ready. That again speaks to integrity. So the snaking your pages items have to do with integrity and really like making sure that these are things you can control. That's the thing that makes it a reader pet peeve is it's like you can control this as a writer. So really take it. So as a reader, you want to have the same thing in your coverages. Your coverages need to be a certain format. You need to make sure if you comment on a script's typos that your coverage isn't riddled with typos. Like that same kind of integrity crosses over to your coverage as well. So you want to make sure that you are also reflecting professionalism. You're not being snarky or rude or mean in your coverage. You're just taking the story, retelling it, taking what works and doesn't work, and placing it out there. So that's both. It applies to both for sure. So then the next one that I want to talk about is what I call Squirrel Central. And so the next three kind of all go together. And those three are Squirrel Central, Screenplay Stew, and genre dumping. And so here's how they go. So Squirrel Central is when a screenplay is moving along and then suddenly, whoop, it squirrels off. And it's like, what happened there? What happened there? And so it's like when scripts do that, a lot of times you don't really see this in movies too much because usually this is taken care of by the time the script gets to the screen. But if a story just completely takes a left turn, a lot of times it'll take a left turn, it'll go down this subplot for a while and it'll create all these characters and situations. And then something will happen and it'll get them back on track. And then this was never referred to again. It's a really common thing that you see in screenplays all the time. And as a reader, just be aware that that's a thing, because you don't see this in movies as much because you might see it a little bit, but not like you will when you're reading unproduced screenplays. And this has to do with another thing that I call Screenplay Stew. And the reason that writers will often, especially young writers that haven't been produced yet, the reason that they'll shoot off like that is because they have so many ideas. And when they're writing, and they're getting all these ideas, and they're like, this is cool. And they start throwing, this is going to make it so much better, right? And they're going to start throwing these ideas in because it's going to make their screenplay so much better. But really what it's doing is it's squirreling off, and you're getting too much in there, and then it becomes stew. So you're squirreling off, and then as the screenplay continues, if you keep doing that, pretty soon it's like every idea you've ever had is in this one screenplay. So as a reader, when you see a script that runs off on a subplot, or like there's just like some random character suddenly comes in, or there's just so much, then you go, okay, wait, no, we've got some screenplay stew here. And the advice to a writer is, okay, you need to really focus this in. Like, how can you take this one idea that you started with and stick to it? And then take that other idea that could be fantastic. And sometimes that's the shame of it, is like, oh, that's really cool, but it's just not the story. And so you can take that out and you'd be like, okay, this is really great. This is not this movie. Take this idea and table it somewhere. And as a writer, when you find that you're just meandering, you're all over the place, that's typically what's going on. You've got too many ideas and you've got screenplay stew in there. And so if you can pull them out and just organize your ideas, some of them might not even belong in this story. You can take some of them and start a different project with that, or maybe it's a series. And so you're wanting to like pull it out. And as a reader, if you're reading this for a producer and you see a screenplay that has a really interesting voice, right, and the characters are kind of fun, the dialogue's pretty good, but it's all over the place, then it's like, okay, wait a minute. This is a great writer. Maybe we go back to this writer, and you can put this in your comments. There are 4 screenplays in this script. So it's like, this particular story works really well. This subplot does not belong in this story, but could be developed into something else. And if you start doing that, producers will love you, because they're going to start seeing that you're seeing beyond, oh, this just doesn't work, throw it away. You're seeing beyond that and going like, oh, this actually works, but maybe over here. So if you can start, when you see that, instead of it being a pet peeve, instead of being annoyed that, oh God, this is all over the place, what am I supposed to do with this mess? Be like, wait a minute. What are the hidden gems in here? What is an idea in here that doesn't belong in the story but could be developed into something else? This will just skyrocket you as a reader because it will really push you forward in terms of being very creative. And really, I mean, how cool is a writer, instead of getting a coverage back that says this script is a mess, it says this particular story needs to be developed and these particular subplots could be developed into something else. So I hope that makes sense, and those all kind of go together. And within that is genre jumping. So when you have a lot of ideas or you see things coming in, a lot of the times the script will jump genres. So meaning like someone will be like tooling along and it's like, you know, it's real intense and it's a drama, and then someone chops someone's head off. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we just branched into horror. And so when you do that, or when you have like, oh, you know what, maybe if they travel back in time suddenly, okay, now we're in sci-fi. You can mash up genres. That's not a problem as long as it's intentional. Like I said earlier, when you know all of these rules, you can break them all you want as long as it's intentional. So we want to see that you understand as a writer what's going on. And as a reader, if you see someone genre jumping, same kind of idea. This just switch genres. This particular, you know, subplot or thing that happened belongs in a different screenplay that's in a different genre. Or if they are going to mash up, which you can mash up, that's okay. If they do something that squirrels off into a genre jumping situation, then you can say, okay, that's fine, as long as back here you change the tone in the beginning so that when you do jump genres, if you're not jumping, it's just a mashup. So it's being able to smooth those edges out. Now, if they do it multiple times, you've got Screenplay Stew. But if they have, like, it happens maybe once, maybe even twice, you can do like 3 genres and still be okay. But if it's just, you know, or if it's one random thing that suddenly went off and then it goes back to its regular thing, again, that's Screenplay Stew, you pull it out, you put it somewhere else. If it just genre jumps and it still works, then it's about going back, foreshadowing, finding devices where you can make this all work. So I hope if you're watching this on YouTube, if this is resonating with you, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Also hit the bell, because then you will be notified every time we have new videos. And if you haven't gone to our YouTube channel, head on over there. We have like hundreds of videos on there about all kinds of things. So just wanted to throw that up there while I'm thinking about it. So I hope this is all resonating with you and making sense, both as a writer and as a reader. And so kind of the last part, these are my favorites. So saggy middles. Saggy middles is the second act is really difficult. That is, in my opinion, that's where you see the most problems. That's where things stall. That's where it becomes, nobody wants a saggy middle in a screenplay or in life. So when you have a saggy middle, the fix to that, and usually what it means is that the structure of the screenplay is missing a midpoint often, or the midpoint isn't at the midpoint, it's somewhere else. It's like wandering around, meandering somewhere else. You want to have that script be where something happens literally right in the middle. So if you're in a 90 page, you're at 45, page 45, there's like a, I don't know why I suddenly had an accent. When that thing switches, like Shrek rescues the princess, literally turns around and comes back. So there are things that happen right in the middle that shift the action, where the character makes a decision to either go for it, or the tables are turned, or the villain gets thwarted, or something happens that kind of, and I believe, like, I don't know the page count, and it's been a long time, but like Luke Skywalker becomes a Jedi, or something happens that like turns everything in the middle. It's when the protagonist typically stops fighting against the call and then goes with the call. Often that is what part of it is, or they turn the tables in some way. So that will really help to fix the saggy middle. So if as a reader, you're seeing that there's just meandering and what are we doing here? We're just biding our time trying to get to the end. That's typically what's missing. There's some kind of either external or internal shift, or hopefully both, that needs to happen within the middle of the screenplay. And then that leads us towards, as we build towards the end, these don't usually happen. Sometimes they do in the beginning, but typically these moments that I'm about to talk about don't typically happen until after the midpoint. And they're what I call the head slapper. It's like, oh, come on. And usually this has to do with, it's a situation where it suddenly becomes ridiculous, really hard to believe. The earlier things, Screenplay Stew, Squirrel Central, and genre jumping, you don't really see that too much on the screen, because those are solved before the screenplay gets to the screen. You will see those a lot as a reader reading unproduced screenplays. Now we're getting into head slappers, and head slappers actually, saggy middles sometimes make it to the screen too, but head slappers can make it to the screen. And sometimes, there's so much involved with making a movie, so many things, so many people that are helping, right? So, or not helping. So, yes, Outlander is a great example of genre jumping, but intentionally, right? So it works. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And it's a series, but when you're reading a screenplay and someone's doing that, maybe the answer is that it needs to be a series because it gives you time to kind of jump around. But there is a series, I want to say Man in High Castle, where they kind of they start pretty hardcore in one genre and then they jump genres and then it expands and jumps again. And I think it gets less and less effective as the series goes on. And by the end, you got some head slappers. Because what happens, a head slapper is just like, you just don't believe it. And people want to believe. They want to suspend. They want to be on the ride with you. They are willing to go to anywhere. They'll believe that you can go through a stone and end up someplace else. They'll go with you until something happens that you put in there that you break your own rule. So if you say ghosts appear on Thursday, and on Thursday is the wacky day, and that's the day the ghost is going to appear, audiences are okay, and they're waiting, here comes Thursday, and then the ghost comes on Friday. It's like, okay, never mind. Like, you will lose them like that if you change a rule, unless on Friday you go, wait, it's a leap year. I don't know. You have some explanation as to why it didn't happen on Thursday. Or a character goes, wait, I thought they only appeared on Thursdays. And you're like, so did I. Blah, blah, blah. But even that, you see how I'm mocking it? Because I'm mocking it because it's like, oh, you're really head slapping there. You're pushing your limits of disbelief and your people's willingness to suspend. And in my family, we have a rule where we're like, all right, I'll suspend. But people are like, come on, because we tend to go come on too much because I've read so many screenplays and I have a creative family and they've listened to me their whole lives. So it's like we see things coming a mile away. So, but it's like suspend. That's like a rule. But people want to suspend, and the more you read, the harder that can be. In order to, the more you'll be like me, where you see it like ahead of time coming. But it doesn't matter if you see it as long as the payoff is good, which kind of leads me to the next one, which is the small finish. It can be as ridiculous and out there, and it can even be head slapping where you're like, come on, if it comes back around in the end and pays off. So there could be moments, Fight Club is a great one that comes around and pays off. And that kind of ending where it was all a dream, it was all a psychosis, that kind of thing can really backfire if it's not done really, really well. It needs to be done so that when you go back and watch it again, you can see all of the things that were leading to that moment. So if something is a head slapper and not quite believable, if it comes back around, I love that when it comes back here, I'm like, oh, okay, they got me. Like, I love that. That's very rare, but I love that. And so if you can't come back around, or even if you don't have head slapping moments, if you're like building, like we need that finish. You want people to leave and think about this film and think about this series and think about this screenplay long after it's done, right? So it is your job to figure out what's missing. Typically, it's something with the protagonist that leads you to a saggy or to a small finish and a saggy middle, but it leads you to a small finish, and that's because the protagonist didn't have a big enough arc either externally or internally, and sometimes both. So if they get to the end and they save the world, but they're exactly the same as when they started, they're still kind of a macho, blah, blah. It's like, all right, cool, they saved the world, but they haven't really changed much. Or they get to the end and they've had this big transformation, but it didn't affect their life whatsoever. That can also be dissatisfying. Now, and I want to make a little caveat on that internal shift can be really interesting if their life circumstance hasn't changed, but they've drastically changed. That can be really powerful, right? Because sometimes we think our circumstances are developing if we're happy or not, but really that has really little to do with it, as long as you're, depending on how you approach life, right? So in general, I'm not talking about big disastrous things, but in general, your circumstances, it's how you relate to the circumstance more than the circumstance itself, right? So I hope these all make sense. And so I'm going to kind of check out your comments. Yeah, so that cliche, the pet peeve, I'm not sure, it says Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is. Yeah. So the thing about formula is sticking to the formula too closely and you end up with crap. I never look at a screenplay as ending up with crap ever. to me, there's always something. So there's always, if a screenplay seems really bad, then we need as readers to kind of turn that on its head and come at it with a little more curiosity. If someone's following structure really closely, that just speaks to fear. It means that the writer is being afraid to let themselves go. But the beautiful hidden gem in that is that they understand structure. So that foundation is so important. So if they have the foundation of structure and they're following, and the thing that's missing then is what I just talked about in terms of the arc of the protagonist, or the arc, that is still a structural thing that needs to happen. But if they're being way too precious about it and way too systematic about it, they're kind of losing the creativity. It's about being able to say, awesome, you have a foundation here that is spectacular. Now forget about it. Forget the foundation now that you have it, and let's play on top of that. So if you can inspire someone to do that, and so it's really, really interesting when that can come together in that way, right? And that kind of leads me to the sort of final one that I want to leave you with. And that this is sort of a bonus. And this also has to do with, as a reader and then as a writer, it's a little bit later in the process. So you've optioned your screenplay, you're now in development. And this has to do with kind of the development process. If you're a writer and you get your script developed, awesome, congratulations, you rock. And if you're a reader and you're getting a chance to work in development where you're reading one or more versions of a screenplay and you're really giving feedback and maybe even kind of helping script doctoring, it can lead to so many other things as a reader. But if you're in that room and you're in the development process, it's being really precious with your ideas on both sides, really. So if you're a writer and you're like, no, this is my baby, and you're like that about your screenplay, it's not a baby. It's not. You can pull it apart and rip it apart and put it in all different things. It's a piece of art. It is your work, and you want to be as clear and concise about what you want from it, and you want to be able to take notes and be like, I'll take that one, not that one. I'm not saying that you need to just lay down and take everyone's notes and like, because then it will become Screenplay Stew. If you have to, again, that goes right back to too many ideas, and that can happen as a reader. If you start bombarding that poor writer with all your ideas, now it's not about their script anymore. Suddenly it's about your idea. And if you do that, you're being precious as well. So it's about how do we come together and stick to that story. You are representing that story. And so when things make you annoyed, when you get pet peevy about things, it's about how can you take a breath, shake the blanket, come back to, okay, what are the structural things that are missing? What is the heart that's missing from this? And do we need to create more than one project out of this? And if so, which is the one we want to start with? Which is the one we're going to stick to? How can I be a champion for that story? How can I be a champion for that writer's voice and their ideas, and have my ideas support their ideas and not my ideas override? There's no hierarchy in this. It's just everyone working together to support that story. And you, as the reader, kind of hold the reins in terms of being the only person that is there specifically for the story. That's your whole purpose. The writer is there for so many reasons, right? They're trying to develop their career and they're trying to do all these things. The producer wants to sell the screenplay. You're like, but what about the story? So you can really, really do that. So definitely, so all of these things, I'm not sure who that is. You're making some comments. It's awesome that you're participating. I love these comments. Yeah, superficial dialogue. Giving suggestions for sure, as long as your suggestions are in keeping with their story. So if they have a story and they're following along and you say, it's about a mother and son relationship, and then you come in and say, what might be good is if we tell more of the mom's backstory. And suddenly you're flashing back, you're adding a structural component that's not the way they've written this. Like you're suddenly rewriting. Instead, it wants to be, how can we get across the mom's backstory and what you already have? What kind of things can they do together? What kind of moments can she have in the way that you've written this story if it doesn't have flashbacks? If it does have a ton of flashbacks, suggesting a flashback it's fine. It's like you're still staying within their umbrella. And I see this all the time in coverages. Maybe, and suddenly the coverage is genre jumping, or the coverage is screenplay stewing, this poor screenplay. So suddenly you're adding ideas to this script that are not in keeping with the writer's voice. It's really, really important, right? That you can really clarify their story. Thank you, Odette. Now I know who it is. You can help them clarifying their story and giving them suggestions. So that you're staying within their umbrella and you're not saying, I have an idea. It's not about you or your idea. It's about how can I support this writer? So if you do have an idea, and I'm not saying you want to shut down those ideas, you just always want to make sure that it's not about you trying to infuse your ideas into their work. It's about you taking their work. There's an analogy about when you're helping a child learn how to climb a staircase. You can grab that child's hand and you can kind of yank them up and be like, come on, this is how you do it. Or you can stand behind that child. You can stick your hand out. You can let them hold onto a rail maybe, or you can let them just put their hand on your hand and you can help them up the stairs. Either way, the child's going to learn how to climb up the stairs. But how empowering is this way as opposed to this way? And that's what how you want to approach your work as a reader. You want to always be there like, come on, you got this. Yeah, how about this? How about that? Not like, I got this. What you need to do is grab this and pull it here, like in yanking that poor writer up the stairs. So I hope that that's helpful for you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so that you'll get notified whenever we have new things. So watch all of these. And also, if you want to see a handout that goes with this, you can go to hollywoodgatekeepers.com/what is a reader. Sorry. hollywoodgatekeepers.com/what is a reader. And we'll put it in the links in the show notes so that you can get it there. Let me see if I can get it here real quick. So I hope this is helpful for you. Hold on. I can do this. Hang on, let me get it for you. Okay. Can't talk and write at the same time. There you go. That's good. This is what you call a small finish. There you go. Okay, so save that and then let's post it, shall we? There we go. Okay, there it is. What is a reader? I got this. So there's my small finish with what is a reader, but really, yeah, I'm glad this has been helpful. Thank you, Sheree, for putting that in the chat. Really, really appreciate that. Really love having you guys here talking about this topic. So as a reader, don't allow these to become pet peeves. Allow these to be a springboard of helping either producer come up with more projects potentially, or really seeing how this actually can work, or really helping that writer like go to the next level, finding the things that they have. And rather than being peeved by it, or rather than being annoyed, or rather than being that, like take a step back and realize these things are so common, and you have a chance to make them less common, right? You have a chance to change the face of it, to change how we talk about it, to change how we can approach writing in general. We all are storytellers. That is the idea. That's what makes the world a better place. We have so many stories that we want to tell. Help those writers tell that story. Help those producers find that story, and help be that story on your own. Help them get out there and really be that support system for writers and for producers. This has been an episode of First Monday. We're so excited that you guys are here. It's so much fun doing these. And if we don't see you sooner, then definitely we'll see you the first Monday of next month. Talk to you guys soon.